My name is John Mancini. I'm president of AIM, and I am here with Martin White, who's the managing director of Intranet Focus Limited. And Martin is many things. He has a resume that's about as long as about this long, I think, when you look at all the different places and experiences you have. But he's essentially the godfather of all things search and the godfather of all things intranet. So I noticed on the LinkedIn profile that said your clients at Intranet Focus have ranged from very large NGOs to a convent. So
That's correct.
tell me about the convent.
There's a convent based in London, in Hammersmith,
Uh-huh.
who actually have 48 care homes around the world.
Oh, okay.
It's a big business. And what they wanted was some easy social software that they didn't know that was what it was, to do things like exchange meal menus, to exchange care protocols, because they had everything from Australia to Santa Monica, and they'd been sold SharePoint, and it was hopelessly overwhelmed. So I introduced them to some low-end software, and they've been happy ever since because all they want to do is just share ideas.
Yeah, it's always amazing how people tend often to overbuy technology, and they,
Yeah.
and in the process, they don't get the solution to the exact thing that they're actually looking for.
Yeah, and they only needed really like one desktop per office around the world to be enabled because this wasn't the sisters talking to each other. It was really just a collaborative text tool, and it worked just fine.
Amazing. Well, let's get started. You're currently working on the second edition of Enterprise Search for O'Reilly Media. You've also
Yeah.
just completed a set of awesome micro videos for us on our new resource center site. In the second edition, what's changed? What's new? What really strikes you as being significant between the first and second editions?
I think the first thing is open source search.
Okay.
When I was writing this, because it was written early 2012, open source, it's going to be there, isn't it? But this was before the launch of Elasticsearch, so it was just, Lucene and Solar. So first of all, it's been open source search. That's been a big driver. I think the second thing, actually, and I know you want to talk about it later, John, is SharePoint 2013, because there's very good search built into SharePoint. And so I think at long last companies have said, gee, it can do that. so SharePoint, I think, has set a benchmark will be the wrong word, a new vision of what search can do. And I think the final thing that's happened is that people are beginning to see that actually search is important. It's not a nice to have, it's a need to have. And increasingly, I want to get a message across about two things. One, it has to be part of an information management strategy. Search can't just be picked off as a little application and now you've got it. And I think I position search as a decision support application. Because
Gotcha.
most of us use search when we say, I better just check.
Mm-hmm.
And if in an enterprise, there's nowhere else you can go. On the web, you could go to other search engines. In the enterprise, if you can't find the right document to make a decision, you really are a very lonely manager. So I want to shift search from being this, we use it for information retrieval and information search, to it's going to help you make better decisions and turn it into a search support application.
Good.
So that's a new twist from where it was a couple of years ago.
Tell me a little bit about SharePoint. I noticed in the little prospectus for the book that you have a full chapter on SharePoint 2013. Give a sense of how that landscape has changed, because it's changed a lot.
Well, it has. I think the most important thing about SharePoint 2013 is that no one buys it for search and then says, oh, gee, it can do collaboration. Yeah, they buy it for the collaboration and then say, oh, gee, it can do search. And they're not prepared for it. They're not prepared for the power of it, for the complexity of it. And I think it's also, SharePoint 2013, it's much more bundled in almost a search application. Search is there driving everything. You can't just switch it off. Now, I think most people, and AIM have got better numbers than I have, but 2010 most people had the standard edition. They didn't have the enterprise fast version. So this has come as a total surprise to most people. So the reason that SharePoint is in there is, first of all, it's a new opportunity for people, and they need to realize that it is an opportunity. I think they need to realize actually it does a very good job of searching SharePoint, but might not be as good as an overall enterprise tool, because Microsoft wants you to put everything inside a SharePoint repository.
Yep.
And I think the third thing is it actually requires people to make it work. And IT departments have never had to worry about search in the past. It just sort of happened, didn't it? But people like Jeff Fried, for example, at BA Insight, really do open up the fact you need people to seriously work on search. So I'm almost using SharePoint to say, if you've got it, this is great, this is good news, but you have to treat search properly and not just, we've acquired it, now what do we do with it?
You got this another new chapter on searching for people and expertise, and I'm really intrigued by that, because it's a little usually when people think about search, they think about it in the context of finding a piece of information rather than finding a person. So talk a little bit about the complexities of doing that, as opposed that kind of knowledge mapping sort of thing.
Well, I think there are two things. First of all, it is actually very difficult to find people, because you don't know how their name is spelt, whether they're using a surname. Take your colleague Apple. How do you spell his name?
No one knows.
No one knows. Does he?
You just string a bunch of consonants together.
Yeah. So first of all, you have a challenge, even finding the name of someone you know, because they may be using a totally different name to the way they're registered on HR. The second thing is, what I want to do with this is really show that search is not a complete solution to the knowledge problem. Mm-hmm. A lot of companies feel if they just have good search, people can write a profile and then we can search it and find the people who know the answers. And I think it's much more complex than that. And you see people, HP have an operation called Collective Enterprise Collective. AstraZeneca are working on something that basically searches everything the organization has. Documents, meeting minutes, who's on what teams, if you like, to give a multi-point dimension to finding people with expertise. But I think the other point, John, is that in the end we want to solve a problem. And I think we should be paying more attention to being able to type into a search engine, this is my problem, find me people who can solve the problem, and find me with people with this expertise, because we might not have framed the problem properly. So I think I want to push search as being the problem solver than the expertise solver, because you can find the expertise, you still might not solve the problem because you have not framed the problem correctly.
Yeah, I like that problem solver kind of approach to it, because that's you're right. That's been somewhat of the missing link in this entire exercise up until now.
Yeah. And yet when you look at most search screens, they have a box for the standard query and a box for the people query, but no one knows what they're searching for when they're searching in the people box. And why do we need two boxes anyhow?
Yeah.
Because often we're searching a document to find someone who might know something.
Yeah, you want to have a conversation with the person that wrote the document in the first place.
Yeah. So it's really, for me, saying that, yes, information is important, but so are the people. They're the knowledge assets of the organization. Let's treat them as a particular class of content, if you like, and address it properly, than just, we'll link it up to the HR database, which is no good to anyone.
How about this question of the user interface and the importance of that in terms of, taking search to the next level and search effectiveness overall?
I think the key thing here is that I think we focus too much on what I call first strike. We want to give people everything on their home screen. There are filters, there are facets, there are find similar, find different, whatever. And I think we forget that search is a dialogue. My example I always use is that when you go into Macy's and ask them if they have a birthday present department, they say, no, they haven't got a birthday present department. So you say, but does that mean you don't sell birthday presents? No, we have a whole store full of birthday presents. But who's it for? What are their interests? Oh, and by the way, we've got this great deal on some new pants up in menswear. Why don't you, because your son may want the latest ones. So what I want to get across in that search dialog box, it invites you in to have a dialogue.
So it's that concept of like an iterative query that essentially, narrows down on what you're looking for.
Yeah, I mean, a very good example in Microsoft, if you type into the Microsoft site SharePoint, you end up with very basic information. If you talk about data disaster recovery SharePoint 2013 risks, the system works to say, hey, you're looking for this very particular document. We know that, because otherwise you wouldn't have used that series of search terms. And I think we need much more intelligence rather than saying, oh, here's X million, figure it out.
Yep.
So I think the other big thing is I think we'll start swiping the screen.
Yeah.
The problem with search is we spend so long with arrow keys and typing in more keywords. Well, what we really want to do is do a mobile type search. Move it here, open this up, contract this.
How about, give me, maybe to wrap up here, what would you see as the critical success factors to have an effective search strategy? What people get lost in the weeds sometimes, I think, with regards to search and get lost in the tool. And, what are those critical success factors they ought to be looking at?
Okay, if I had to choose 5, first of all, you have to see it as an information management application. Mm-hmm. Because in the end, if you've got poor quality information that's not reviewed, revised, deleted, the classic life cycle that AIM are so good at presenting, all you'll do is just get a lot of rubbish. Search software is both very clever but also very stupid. It doesn't know that the 6 versions you found aren't the current version because it was no one's job to take them out. So I think information management is crucial. I think the second thing is we have to see search as part of browse and monitor. It's not a standalone. We may want to look for some stuff. Hey, that's interesting. I didn't know we did that project. Now I want to search for it. I really need to monitor that project. So can I run a search in background? Mm-hmm. So that's number 2. I think the next thing is we have to understand that in most organizations there are multiple search platforms. There's one in HR, there's one in ERP, there's one in your document management, there's one inside everyone's mobile phone. And so actually, all Hunt is a very search enabled, but no one is looking after it as a whole. I think my final 2 is that I think you have to understand that search takes people to support it. There's this myth that, you just come in, plug it in. Now, if you look at a standard ERP application, it's like 1 person per 100 users. Now, that's not sensible for search, but I think people need to realize that there is no bad technology, John, now. Search technology is very good. So if it doesn't work, it's either poor quality content, where you can fix that, or not enough people are caring about search, and you can fix that. Yeah. Technology is there. And my final thing is that I think it's this question of focusing on it as a decision support tool, because then I think it's easier to make a business case. It's going to help us close that deal quicker. It's going to help us respond to that customer query more quickly.
Well, I really appreciate the time, appreciate the insights, and also appreciate the new set of micro courses that you've built for us. And I'd like to encourage everybody to go there. If you go to aim.org and look in the upper left-hand corner for resource centers, you will find them there. And pleased to be here with Managing Director of Intranet Focus, Martin White. And thanks a lot for the time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, John, for the support of AIM. It's been a pleasure working with you and your team.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.